Welcome back to Not a Straight Line with me, Pete Daly-Dickson. This is the show that explores the non-linear journeys of artists and entrepreneurs to inspire you as you zigzag through your own non-straight line life. And this week, I had a great conversation with Nina Taylor. Like a lot of young people, Nina wasn't at all sure what direction she wanted to go in when she left school, but she had a fire that burned with curiosity and drive that transformed her from a retail and bank employee into the self-employed learning and development expert that she is today. From contract to freelance and now a coach, Nina is activating her potential by satisfying that ever-abundant curiosity. A mum and now a doting grandmother, she's keen to pass along the messages that young Nina needed to hear to put her on the right path. And we're fortunate to hear them on the podcast today. So sit back or stand, relax, and enjoy this week's episode with Nina Taylor. Nina, it is a privilege and a delight to welcome you to the Not a Straight Line podcast. I am particularly thrilled that you have chosen this podcast to be your very first podcast that you've been on. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
That's amazing.
So a little bit nerve-wracking, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah, just think of it like a conversation between friends. And although we don't really know each other, you and I met on I think it was at an online networking event, I think hosted by a mutual friend, Gareth Everson. And I just, whenever I get into an online event like that and I see people, if they say something that kind of sparks something for me, I go and stalk them on LinkedIn and kind of just see a little bit more about them. And there was just something about you that made me think that I wanted to have a conversation with you for the podcast. And we'll get into that and we'll find out all the twists and turns and zigs and zags of your life, because I'm sure you've had a non-straight line journey through life as well as any of my guests and myself. So just to kick off, I like to start with the same question. The initial question is the same, but the journey in this conversation now between us is always very different. Did you get a chance to reflect on the question that I sent over by email?
Yes.
So when you read that question, was there anything that came immediately to mind for you?
Yeah, so I identified a few different bumps in the road, if I will, but I would say that the biggest diversion from my straight line would have been when I decided to take a leap of faith and become self-employed a few years back.
When was that?
When I chose to become self-employed, or when it was about 13 years ago. So I had a 22-year career in banking, in the same bank. I'd been a single parent, so I chose security and kept with the bank and was going through different roles. And I took a step into training, if you will, delivering courses. I'd had the experience of coaching and developing people up to that point, and I knew that I had big impact on people. But being stood in a training room, I decided that was where I really wanted to be. So after 22 years with no redundancy in sight or anything, I just left to become self-employed. So
that is a tremendous zag, and I can't wait to go back in time and explore early life of Nina just to get to that point, because I'm sure that there are many people, maybe even the listener of this episode, that has entertained ideas of self-employment, working for themselves, and the kind of sense of freedom and certainly more autonomy that you have with that. But to do that after so long with the same employer in the circumstances you were in, wow, what a zag. So let's go right back in time, if that's okay with you, to the young Nina growing up. Where was that, and what was your childhood like?
So I grew up in Blackburn, Lancashire. as you can probably tell with a very northern accent. And I was academically quite bright, I would say. I did okay at school. I had quite a photographic memory, so my revision for my exams was read everything once and float through the rest. Very strangely. But I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I thought I spent most of my time at school thinking I wanted to be an air stewardess because I wanted to travel. My background, family life was quite poor. We weren't destitute, but we didn't really have luxuries. I'd never traveled abroad before, and being one of 3 children, I know that my parents did what they could for us, but like in terms of Christmas and birthdays, but we didn't really get anything else outside of that. So I think I wanted to do it really to travel.
And are you the youngest, oldest, middle?
I'm the middle child, the eldest girl, if you will, but don't really feel that I meet any of the stereotypes um, of being a middle child. But I think I just sailed through school, didn't, lost direction, didn't really know what I wanted to do, didn't really feel that my parents could afford to send me to university, didn't really know what I wanted to do anyway. So took A levels, but then left after that and got a job.
And what subjects intrigued you, ignited your curiosity? What were you into? What you were excited about?
At school, English and languages. I possibly did languages thinking it. Well, I think I had a natural interest in languages, and I think I did okay with it. And that's probably complemented my idea of wanting to travel. Although I've never been to any of the places apart from France. I have got an A level in German and an O level in Swedish. So very randomly, and not been to either of those countries. And then I also did French and Latin. Yeah. So, and I'm not fluent in any of them, so a bit different.
Quite a mixture.
Yeah, I mean, I did okay at maths, but it never really ignited my passion. I had no interest in science, but I did do one. I did biology, the easiest one. A long time ago now. We're going back many, many years since I was at school. But I think then from that point, after leaving, I got a job initially in retail. Then I moved into banking at the ripe old age of 21, or just before my 21st, and realised that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with customers. I enjoyed the intellectual side of it, the fact that you do have to think about things. And I built my career from that point on.
So I'm really curious just to delve into a little bit. You said you had this. Would you describe it as a dream to travel and to be an air stewardess? And did you make any attempts to kind of go down that route?
We're really going back, aren't we? I did. I wrote to, because we didn't have internet in those days, I wrote to several airlines and asked about the requirements. So most of them said that the minimum height was 5'4", and I've only just got above 5'2". So I would have been very restricted in which ones I could work for at that time. I know it doesn't really apply now. Yeah, I think I thought about it very early on in secondary school and clung on to it. But lost my way when I got to doing exams. And I think a few teachers pointed out that I was probably overqualified.
Even so, a dream is a dream, and a desire is a desire. So how did it feel? Do you remember what that was like, realizing that you wouldn't be able to travel the world in the way that you wanted?
I don't think I was bothered. It was my decision in the end. I didn't feel I was being restricted because I had found a couple of airlines that would have took me, but I didn't feel that it was anybody else's choice because I was ready to pursue whatever I wanted. I just came to the realization that it wasn't for me in the end. I didn't really want to pursue it anymore. So I went into sixth form having no direction, no inkling about what I really wanted to pursue anymore. So I think I floated through sixth form.
And did you get a sense that there was a common experience with your peers, or did you have a sense that everyone else kind of seemed to have a clear idea and that you were kind of on your own?
I think I was on my own. Most of my friends from school have achieved what they set out to achieve. They had fixed ideas. They went to university. They did what they planned to do, I think. My couple of close friends anyway. So I didn't feel that anybody else was doing what I was doing, which was losing their way.
And did you feel that you were on your own? You were having to figure it out on your own, or
Um, yeah, potentially, because I had no role models because of my family background. My dad, he worked in engineering, but he was an inspector type role. My mum was a cleaner. She worked in the evenings when we were at school, so that she could go out in the evening. They didn't really have many friends, my parents. So, and my friends that from locally where we grew up, just, similar type jobs. And we probably didn't even ask people. My best friend from growing up had a shop. That was the only other experience I probably had. I didn't really ask anybody else what the parents did. So I don't feel I really had any role models where I could think, I want to do that. Oh, the only experience you have is what you see on TV.
mm.
And I don't think there was any educational programs then that really got you thinking about careers.
So you described your experience of sixth form as kind of sailing through. I sailed through O levels, and I tried to apply the same philosophy, if you like, to A levels, and it didn't work at all. So you've obviously got a better photographic memory than I do.
Yeah, I know that I could have got better grades if I'd have studied harder. But again, I think when you've got to that point where you're not really aiming to go to university or do something with them, it didn't really matter as much. But I don't like giving up. So even being in the sixth form and feeling like I don't really know what I want to do anymore, I didn't want to leave before I'd got the bits that I wanted to do. I did give up one subject and told the teachers I would take another subject and they never did and nobody pulled me up on it. But yeah, so I mainly focused on
Mm.
additional things that I took on. So I studied Swedish, lunchtimes and after school. I took on psychology, AO level. So I think I only took one A level in the end because I just picked up all these other things that interested me and dropped things that I no longer wanted to bother with.
But that's so in a way it's encouraging, refreshing to hear. Education comes up quite a bit on these conversations because everyone's had one, and just this idea of you just studying and getting immersed in stuff that interests you isn't that what all of education should be about? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Any of us could go down a different route. And I do think that the people that teach you have a big impact on whether you like a subject. So, for instance, history, I felt the initial teachers were really quite boring. So you associate it with being a boring subject. So I never wanted to pursue that anymore. Yeah,
Mm.
that kind of thing. Whereas now, I'm one of them constant Googlers that, oh, this is an interesting program. Let me Google the real facts. And I wonder when that king was in on the throne, etc. So I probably have a bit more interest to find things out myself, but I had no interest in it when I was at school.
I absolutely resonate with what you're saying. You said that you had an affinity and interest in modern languages. My French teacher leading up to O levels was a Frenchman, and just such a complete turn off. It was a horrible experience, and same again with history. Not boring so much. It's just not a. I don't want to say in public what I think, just in case at some point it comes back around. But I put it this way: I didn't take history for O level either. Yeah, the adults around us as children have a tremendous impact on us, don't they?
Yeah, and even because my path has taken me into learning and development. So I'm a trainer, coach, all that kind of thing. I do want anybody that's in a classroom with me to have a positive impression and walk away having learned something. So I do find it interesting to reflect back and think, well, maybe they just lost their way. Maybe they were in a job they didn't really want to do and they just went through the motions. Who knows? Because to me, if you have a passion for your subject, that passion should come out.
100%.
Or maybe it's just the frustration of having to deal with young kids is the bit. Whereas when you're dealing with adults, it's slightly better.
Slightly. Yeah. Kudos to teachers, any teacher that may be listening to this. Sometimes I feel it's a big enough job just looking after your own kids. So to have responsibility for looking after and teaching a whole classroom, that's definitely not for me. So I do respect those adults that do take that on. And like you say, there are many out there that do light fires under young people, which is really really exciting to see. So in terms of lighting fires, though, young Nina getting to the end of her self-professed 1A level, it's fine. That's more than I got. Hasn't yet had, would you say, a fire lit under her? Did you sense? Do you have any sense of a world of opportunity open to you, or does this kind of sense of lack of direction kind of feel closed in? What was it like getting to the end of your A levels?
Again, like I said, I didn't have role models. I didn't really understand what other opportunities might be out there, whether I was able to do them. So I ended up I'd had a Saturday job in CNA, if anybody remembers CNA. So experience of retail, I ended up getting a job in Debenhams.
That's going back a bit.
Yeah, I got a job in Debenhams. And again, just applying myself, I knew that I had, the ability to work hard and achieve things because I'd done that at school, and just wanting to make an impression. I did.
And that you were smart too. You were clever.
Yeah. But I did get disillusioned, though, that customers in the stores used to talk to you like they thought you were thick, and you just sat there, it's like, yeah. But anyway, that wasn't the reason. I enjoyed what I was doing, and I did that for a number of years. Well, not a number of years. I did it for a short while. It was less than 2 years because I then became pregnant at the age of 19, and I'd fallen short of the 2-year time span that it was then that you could go back. So I was forced into leaving with a new baby.
And was that unplanned?
Yeah, definitely unplanned. Yeah. So I was engaged at the time, but it was definitely unplanned. So that was another little bit of a zag in the road that I thought I was on this career path. I'd been earmarked to go and help open a brand new store. And people who generally got into that kind of activity generally got promoted. So I knew I was on a path towards better things. And then I had to announce that I was pregnant. Anyway, things happen for a reason.
How did you feel when you found out?
Oh, God, I was devastated. I just felt like it was just a complete and utter spanner in the works. And I was, really too young to have a baby. But then once I got over, after a couple of weeks of being upset, I realized that I wasn't going to do anything else about it other than carry on. So I'm quite resilient in that way, that I think things like that have built that resilience, that now whenever anything happens to me, I'll get upset and then go, right, you've had your cry. What are you going to do about this? And I probably did the same with that. I got it out my system, talked to people about how I was feeling, and then thought, right, well, I've got to just deal with this now. So onwards and upwards. And I did. And I wouldn't swap my daughter for the world, or my granddaughter that she's produced. So there you go.
So you found out you were pregnant. What's your daughter's name?
Jodie, like Jodie Foster.
You described it as a spanner in the works. You talked about not having role models as you were growing up, but did you have any role models inside the CNA?
Yeah, they were probably the in CNA, the like managing director of the branch. Can't remember what the proper role was. Store manager, whatever. They were quite senior because they had the whole store. Was a lady, can't remember her name, but she inspired me to think that there were possibilities in the first place, which is probably why I went on and then applied for a role in Debenhams. And again, there was people in HR, there was stores used to have all the different roles in them at that time.
Mm.
Yeah, possibly inspired me a little bit. But then obviously that was short lived, because once my maternity was up, I had to leave. But my immediate manager, who I had a really good relationship with, she kept coming around and saying, "There's a job coming up. I want you to apply for it." And this is like a couple of weeks after I'd had Jodie. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet."
give us give us a bit. Give us a bit of time. Come on.
Yeah. But yeah, I went back to work when she was 3 months old. But I carried on in retail for a bit, but then I got made redundant, last in, first out, when they were getting rid of people. And I guess that was probably the kickstart that got me into something else, because then I applied for a couple of other jobs and got a job in banking and found something I was comfortable with, something I felt like I could still work with customers because I like people. I had a good team, and I was able to do lots of different tasks in the branch then. We used to do typing and everything then on proper typewriters.
Yeah. I am curious with what you're saying there. What was there a sense that you knew you had to you were made redundant? Were you just kind of throwing as much against the wall as you could and see what stuck, or was there something specifically about banking or the particular role that you saw? Were you applying for roles, or were you just you know writing to companies on spec? What was going on in your mind about what to do after retail?
I probably applied for that because it was customer facing. So I knew I had the experience from retail. I did apply for another role. Oh, yes, that was when I'd applied for a job with a TV cable company when it was all brand new. It was only just coming out, no tested way of knowing whether it was anything. And when I got to the interview, the lady who interviewed me said, "I don't think this role is right for you, but I've got another job coming up, which will be," and it was almost like managing a team, people orientated. She says, from what I described, she thought I would be well suited for that role, whereas the other one was just a bit admin-y. So she told me she'd get back in touch. Anyway, then the job in banking came up. I had quite a long delay from her telling me about this to anything happening, a couple of months maybe. So I took the job in the bank, and it was probably a couple of weeks later, I got a message, "We'd like to come in for an interview." And I ended up turning it down because I'd fallen into a bank, and I thought bank could give me more security as a single parent, because I had no idea whether cable TV would take off. So once you're a parent, I think security becomes an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just in terms of thinking about the security, did you think that you would be there for as long as you were? Is that what you were hoping for, that you just get that stability and that reliability, or did you think you might use it as a stepping stone to something else?
I don't think I ever thought, would I be here for a number of years? But I did go into it thinking I would climb right up to a senior level. And then it's only when you start, you realise that all those kind of jobs were in London, and I would have to uproot my daughter to do that. I was with her father at the time, but we split up just before she was 2. So then you'd always have that taking the child away from the other party, etc. And again, I was only, I had her when I was just before I was 20. So even them early years,
Wow.
it still became it's a big deal to get uproot yourself and your child and go somewhere where you know nobody. So I stayed where I was. And I did apply for jobs in other branches. So back then, so the bank I worked for was Abbey National. And at that time, branches where jobs came up were miles away from me, such like Warrington, and I applied for them. I was more than determined to think I will find a way and get in there if I can get the job. But I don't think I convinced the people interviewing me that I would be able to go there in time. But anyway,
I love this. There's kind of a theme or a thread that's emerging. My understanding of Nina growing up, that when you see something that you want, you go after it, and there's a sense of determination to get it. Would that be fair?
I think it's more about not letting things stand in my way, but I am realistic at the same time. So I'm I'm optimistic and I believe in myself to a degree. I also have imposter syndrome sometimes, completely out of the way. Um,
Yeah, but that's only you, Nina. You're the only person that has that. Don't worry.
yeah, probably am. Yeah. So I felt confident enough to go for the roles, but I did have challenges in being able to achieve them because I didn't have a car at the time, and I would have had. I reflect back now and think I would have probably spent 2 hours every day at the beginning and end of each day trying to travel to work, 2 hours each way. Which when you've got to go and pick your child up from childcare becomes a different story. Can't do flexi time, or work from home like people do now.
But what a commitment, though, and determination. Just in spite of that, just to keep going.
Yeah, and I had a couple of different experiences with managers. So the first manager I had in the bank was very male orientated. I did all the branch managers in our area were all male. There were no females. But the branch manager I had at the time when I first was taken on, Steve, he was really, really good because he knew how to manage well, but he would pull you up, he'd take you in, if you did something wrong, you'd be called to his office, he'd tell you what you did wrong and explore ways to move forward. But at the same time, he also knew how to reward you for things you did well. I know that he recognized a talent and ability in me to do things and do them well. So I did get moved around into lots of different parts of the branch to try different things. So I felt valued, I felt motivated to work. And then a couple of years later, I can't remember exactly how long it was, he moved on and another manager came. Oh, it would have been 2 years later. Because one of the other things he did for me was I decided at that point that what I really wanted to do was study a bit more, because like you do, I decided to go and do a HNC in business and finance. I thought that that would help me get some background in business and other elements that I'd missed out on in school. And because he understood my circumstances, he agreed to let me go from lunchtime one day and I just carried on into the evening. So I only had to work out childcare for one evening and I just did that by working every Saturday morning. So we worked this out. It was halfway through that course, so a 2-year course, that he left and another manager came on board, immediately said, you cannot go to college on that day. You'll have to go 2 evenings a week, and treated me like I was stupid, made me record everything like a phone call I took, complete like bullying behaviour. And then even worse, so part of this business and finance thing I had in the first year with my first manager, I did a survey around staff motivation. And I was doing an essay, like a piece of work around it. So I decided to send out a survey. My initial manager said, what a great idea. Do you want to sit down? Let's have a look at the questions you've got. And he gave me some feedback on some of them, helped me shape them better. He positioned it with the regional manager to say, Nina's going to send this out. Are you okay with that? And they loved it. So I got some really good feedback on the impact that it had. I got really good responses. And they then decided that my area manager said, can we do this for the area, but on a different level? Can we reword some of the questions? So whereas my first manager supported me, it was very clear that it was all my work and he made it very clear that I was doing this. By the time the second manager came in, I had to go to an area meeting to present my findings. And at the very end of that meeting, he was talking about, we've done this, we've done that. And, like you straight away feel like you've just took credit for all my work. And he did absolutely nothing for it. So again, these are all things that shape you, relationships that make you bounce back, but it did drag me down for quite a period of time. Somebody who didn't treat me right.
It never ceases to amaze me, Nina, how people, there is I think it might actually be called the Peter Principle from some management guru, that he said that everyone gets promoted beyond their level of incompetence. And just that story there about that manager, I mean, I knew exactly how it was going to end when when you're saying about going to this area meeting, and it kind of it does make you wonder how people do get into those positions. That they're playing a different game, I guess, in corporate with politics than I've ever wanted to or had the inclination to play.
Well, I think it comes down to misogynism. Like I say, it was very male orientated. Maybe he saw me as a threat. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because all these situations shape you. So when I then became a manager myself, I used those experiences to say there's absolutely no way I'm ever going to treat anybody like him. I want to be more like my first manager. And you take that on board and you know, and that's what I've been through my career. So yeah, few years in, I became a customer service manager, and I just seem to naturally take to it. Like you say, when you've had a good experience, you know how you want to treat people. But I think that was the point where I really realized I was good at developing people and coaching them, because I walked into that branch on the day that we merged with the NMP, National and Provincial. So we weren't allowed to sort of use the systems or move them over. Everything moved on a Sunday, and I moved into that branch on the Monday and had to train a whole team of about 10 people how to serve customers for Abbey National with their systems and processes. And I was really proud of the way that we all did that, because I identified people who learnt quickly. I trained them, got them to help me train the others. The manager of the branch had said to me at the end of after a couple of weeks, I can't believe what you've done with this particular member of staff, because she thought she was just lagging her heels. But I think by identifying that she had something, I gave her that motivation that, I'd got before. And she became, fantastic member of staff, and just nurturing people and giving them what they need and understanding how well they can do is a real big factor in developing your team.
What do you think the Nina that's coming to the end of her A levels, not really sure about what she's going to do, where she's going to do, how her life's going to pan out? If that Nina was to experience there was to experience the Nina that you just described, what do you think young Nina would have thought of that Nina?
I think she would have looked up and thought, that's where I want to be.
Yeah,
Be inspired by things I've done.
I think you're right. I think she would have been incredibly inspired, and you would have been an incredible role model. Did you get a sense at this stage that you were getting a direction? Did you feel that you were on a track that was self-directed, or did you feel that you were, I don't know, on a corporate treadmill that you didn't really have much choice about? I'm just trying to get a sense of reflecting back on what you said about when you were younger.
Yeah, I definitely drove myself towards that direction, because they were the couple of jobs I'd applied for that were too far away. So the opportunity with national and provincial coming along meant that more local opportunities opened up to me. Now, the only other thing is, when I'd had this bully manager, I'd also been in a relationship in an abusive relationship. So I was just coming out of the other side of that. And so I'd had a period where I probably didn't go for anything, because there were two people getting me down, knocking me down, making me feel like I was worthless. And then coming out the other side of it, so I've just come out of that relationship and I got my bounce back and I saw this opportunity. And it was like the stars were all aligned to say the opportunity's in front of you, now's the time to take it. So it was definitely me directing that. And from that point on, I took the customer service manager role, then I went for a bigger branch, then I became a branch manager, and so on and so forth. So I then was moving up the ladder and build a reputation for myself for doing pretty well.
Mm. Well done for getting out of that relationship, because you hear so many stories of the difficulties that there are in getting out of those. I mean, was there anything that you? A few questions come to mind. How long were you in the relationship? When did you realize that it wasn't the kind of relationship that you wanted, and what did you do specifically to get out of it?
Uh, I went out with him for about 3.5 years. There were probably signs after about a year, yeah, maybe close to the year mark, that things were yeah, he'd done stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I think there's a lot of people out there that go through a hell of a lot worse than I did. So I don't really dwell on it that much. I think
Mm.
this was just a lot of it was maybe the emotional stuff pushing me down, making me feel like I guess like he was a martyr for putting up with me as having a child, making me feel like I had no ability to decide things, you know, the old slap, but I guess, it wasn't, like you say, I know people go through a hell of a lot worse than I did.
I guess what I was maybe just trying to tease out is if there's anything that you did that might help somebody who's listening to this episode that kind of recognizes that they're not in a relationship that they know that they deserve, because it does take a tremendous amount of you mentioned earlier that you believe in yourself to a certain regard. Well, I would say that there requires a tremendous amount of self-belief and self-determination to get out of a relationship like that.
Um, it does. And I think I spent the last year trying to build up my confidence because then it became easy. So I think the biggest thing is that they absolutely erode your confidence. So for anybody listening, it's all about building that confidence back. The problem is that in a lot of relationships, they isolate you from people. So he used to call my best friend names, make out that if I went out with her, that I must be sleeping around. So you end up just getting to a point of not choosing not to go out, maybe. And then I just got to a point of thinking, I'm not letting you do this to me anymore. So I started going out a bit more again. And I think the more you can drag yourself away, then the better
Good
you
for
do.
you.
Now, I know that there are people out there that don't have that ability because of the relationship they're in. But I would just, say the more, if you can try and find somebody who can help you, then people can, help you build your confidence and try and get you away. Not that it's as simple as that.
And even I guess even the smallest steps, when you take enough of them, are enough to move you away from anywhere.
Yeah, it all begins with building a bit of confidence, and then it became, that it was me. I took one look at him one day and knew he'd been up to something again. It's not only just that, the fact that you knew that they're up to no good behind your back. And I said, "What have you been up to?" And he said, "Who's been talking?" And I just said, "Wrong answer. Off you go." So chucked him out.
It's almost like every accusation is a projection, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe we just got to that point. But yeah, before that, if I ever sort of challenged anything, because he was a compulsive liar, if I ever challenged something that he said, as in, "That's not what you said to me last time," that's when you used to just, he'd explode a bit because he knew I'd got him sussed. So anyway, that's not my history. I mean, end of the day, we're talking about the good things that have happened, and I don't really want to dwell on the bad. There are life experiences that have propelled me forward.
Yeah. So we've got a Nina that's getting her confidence back, has kind of got this self determination and decided to move on. What impact did that have in your professional life?
And moving on, well, that was the point that propelled me into applying for a role. You're seeing an opportunity, propelling myself into it. So for the next few years, yeah, I went through different roles, climbed the ladder a little bit into being a branch manager. And then I guess the next key milestone for me would have been early 2000s, because this is probably moving on from that mid 90s to 2000. And it's part of Abbey National's drive to try and be a little bit different and be a bit more friendly than the bank, if you will. We did, they did a trial of almost like franchising areas, the branches, if you will. And we were one of 6 areas that were picked to trial this out. It was like I saw that again as a great opportunity. So at that point, I was a branch manager. I was leading a team, doing pretty well. And we sat around a table. The area manager announced that we were going to do this franchising. And it meant that we had a bit more autonomy over how many staff we could recruit, or whether, how we aligned the money. We were given a budget. We could do what we wanted with that budget. We could earn or whatever we wanted from it, obviously with the same products and everything. And at that point, he was saying, I want different branch managers to take a bit of responsibility. And I flew straight in and said, I want to be responsible for development, people development. So he initially gave it to two of us to look at, explore.
That's an incredibly strong statement of both your belief and your interest and your desire. Incredibly strong.
Yeah, it is.
You knew by this stage in your career that was something that you were particularly good at. It was in your zone of genius, your unique ability almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I had gone into branches where there were staff underperforming, or they had behavioural things like turning up late, etc. And I felt I was able to turn them around. I got people from 52% up to 100%. I got people at 90% to 130%, that kind of thing. So I just felt that it was something that I enjoyed and I knew that I was pretty good at. So I jumped in with this. I want to look after this. And
what is it in you that you think gives you that ability and that gift?
I think I have natural empathy and understanding and a curious nature to uncover what's really going on with people. So I think I just automatically, when I first started coaching, I think I just took to it naturally that I was able to ask questions that dig a bit deeper than the surface problem. So I think the first time you do it, you think, oh, that was good. And then you do it again and you think, actually, this is going pretty well. So, the bank did send us on a course, but I'd already done some work with people and just been on a course about coaching and just sailing through it that, you're thinking, yeah, I'm already doing all this. So, yeah, I think it's just a natural curiosity and empathy with people.
It's a bit like young Nina studying Swedish, just like a real thirst for the knowledge.
Yeah, probably. Just want to understand people and help them. Just a real passion for helping people do well at work. And again, like I said, going back to them previous managers, wanting to not give somebody an experience like one I'd had.
Yeah, that was quite a formative experience for you.
Yes.
So you were given the job. You said you was given to two people initially. Did you say?
Yes. So he was dishing out that you can be responsible for savings, you can be responsible for mortgages, and then because I think he thought it was a bit bigger, he said, me and this other a colleague responsible for learning and development. But I was the one that took the bull by the horns and said, okay, I'm going to go and think about really research how I can do this. So we sort of took it on the road. I then put together a business case to take to the manager to say, I really want to do this properly. I don't want to just come to a meeting and say, this is where we're at. I put together a business case that said, what I really want to do is to be able to step away from a branch and really concentrate on people. So really focus on moving people from role up into higher roles. And if we want to create more sales, for instance, we need more salespeople. So we need them in the next role up. And I put all this together, and eventually he said, I'll let you have a go at it for 3 months. And I ended up doing it for 2 years because I was so successful at it that we ended up lifting performance massively.
I love that.
Yeah. So even running campaigns. So, for instance, we were underperforming on home insurance. So I ran a workshop. And again, I had no experience of training, but I ran a workshop and followed it up with some coaching. And the performance went from, I think it was about 56% to 138% within a matter of weeks. He wasn't keen to let me stop doing it. As with all good things, the company decided to stop it happening. So probably at least 4 of the other areas didn't really do it as well as we did. So they didn't feel it was a viable option anymore. So I had to go back to being a branch manager.
They didn't have a Nina on their team.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. So yeah. So then going back into a branch was it was frustrating because I found something I was passionate about.
Mm.
And then when you go back to managing a branch, although you can do some of the development, you have all the other things like hitting targets to do as well, and paperwork and standard things. So I carried on. I was okay, managed it. But I think in the back of my mind was always this desire to do more with the development side. Plus, that area manager moved on. I got another one who decided that if I was so good at what I did, that he started giving me all the underperformers and giving me higher targets. So I was having to hit higher targets with people who were struggling, and it became really, really tough.
It sounds stressful. Just the description.
And then, well, I mean, a couple of things happened, but ultimately, I saw an opportunity in the training department for a secondment, and I decided to go for it. And again, it was supposed to be like a 1 year secondment, called it peer development. So I would be training other people in branches, similar roles, and I loved it. That was the point. So I did end up doing that for 2 years, and I knew that I did not want to go back to a branch. And the learning department were outsourcing a lot of the trainers. By being in learning, I was meeting a few contractors, so I decided to go and pick their brains, ask them what it was like being a contractor, where they got their work from. And that's the point when my secondment came to an end, that I just decided that I was not going to go back and work in branches, and that I would just pack it all in and go and be a trainer.
Wonderful. An hour and 10 after we started, we're back where we started, and I'm really excited to now delve into your zigzag journey from that point. I did wonder, when you were talking earlier about almost an effortless ability to get people to improve and whatever. Have you ever done the Clifton Strengths psychological profile tool? Have you heard of it? It used to be called Strengths Finder.
No, I have completed Strength Scope, but I am certified to do EQI2, so the emotional intelligence one. So I've had that done as well, but I deliver that one. I can also do DISC.
If you ever do Clifton Strengths, I wouldn't be surprised if Maximizer was one of your top 5.
Okay.
Strength and ability to see the potential in things and people, and to be able to move them from good to great, taking something great and making it superb. It sounds to me, as you've been talking there, that's just like the great thing about strengths is that they're innate. You don't have to work and strive at getting them. So I love this point in your life that you just described, that and I'm drawing out a tremendous amount of hope from your story, from the 17, 18-year-old Nina that had no idea what she wanted to do or where she was going to go. And yet there's something in you that just, you kept putting one foot in front of the other, and you kept moving forward. And that's a lesson in life as much as anything. And in doing that, you found what lit you up. I mean, although we discussed earlier, you didn't have any teachers that lit a fire under you, that you eventually, over time, you found a way of lighting that fire yourself. And I also wonder how realistic it is. I mean, the sense that when you're 16, 17-year-old, you're making decisions about your life, which is like, hang on a second, I haven't lived, I haven't experienced enough to know what I like and what I don't like. And I think the way that you've approached your life is hugely inspiring, in that, of course, there were some hard times, there was difficult times, but actually you trusted in yourself enough to keep going. And when you found something that you liked, like when you were studying foreign languages at school, you dug into it to the point that when you came to this point that we've just got to, where you saw that, I don't know, what did the thought of going back to managing a branch feel like to you? Just the possibility. What was that like in your body?
Well, back then, well, I guess it filled me with dread, but like I said, it become less about developing people that were aspiring for things, as more of I think, a frustration sometimes with other managers, because and I've worked with other companies since and everything, but there's always them that, rather than deal with a problem, they want to just pass it off. It just got to the point where, let's pass it on to Nina, she'll sort that out. Because I was firm but fair, and I look to develop people. So when I got somebody, I would say, this is where you are, this is where you need to be, this is what I can do to help you, but this is what you need to do to help yourself. And if you do all these things that we talk about, then you will get to where you need to be. But if you don't do them, these are the consequences. And I think the consequences, those difficult conversations, other managers were frightened of, didn't want to go down, they avoided. And it happens, it still happens now. I mean, I've worked with companies just recently where those conversations don't happen. So I think it's a really important thing to do. And I think that has also fired my passion for what I'm doing now. But we'll get to that. So
I've heard it said that the quality of one's life can be determined by the number of difficult conversations that you're prepared to have. And it sounds to me that you haven't shirked from those. So it's no wonder really that you're living the life that you have decided that you want to create for yourself.
yeah, and I think some of that reflects back on my earlier life where, for instance, with the abusive partner, the fact that I probably didn't challenge him, but or that because I was put in a position where maybe I couldn't do, that I was determined that I wasn't going to try and get down that route again, or the boss that I never challenged upwards about because I didn't have the confidence to go in and say, what are you doing to me? Putting work on my desk and putting it on top of everything else I was working on made me feel like that was a priority. And I felt like my own workload was suffering. So it was suddenly like 5 files, or can you do this? Type these letters. And I was struggling. But instead of speaking up myself, my customer service manager, if you will, went and had a word. But then he ended up going against her, which this is what makes me think it's a misogynistic kind of attitude. But anyway, we've moved on from that. So yeah, I think it's resilience. I think you need resilience to be able to have these conversations. You need to be able to be nice with people and be firm with them and tell them what you expect of them and what are the consequences if you don't. But at the same time, you can then say, however, this is how I want to support you through that.
And comes back, sounds to me, comes back to your natural empathy that you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You're those conversations from an empathic perspective.
Yeah, because quite often the problem that people present isn't the problem they're really having, and they might not want to share it initially. But if you go in with facing the problem and you start digging a bit deeper, then that's where it will come out. Whereas if you just skim over the surface of something, as in, yeah, you're underperforming, get on with it, people don't really buy into that. There's no accountability. If you don't give people accountability, then they're never going to lift their performance, are they?
So you're at a point, you're absolutely categorically sure and certain that you're not going back into the world of banking, and you've been talking to contractors, and you're getting a sense of where you might be able to pick up training work. You hand in your resignation. What was day one of not having that stability and that security that you've spent 22 years previously? You thought, this is what I'm going to do for me and Jody to have like really strong, secure environment. What was day one outside of that environment like for you?
It didn't feel that different. So I'd had to give 12 weeks notice because that was the notice period. So in that time, I'd been building relationships with agencies that build contractors. By this time, I'd met my husband. We got married. So I had a little bit of, support and security behind me. Although I don't think he fully realized what to expect, because I think he thought that I was walking definitely into more work or straight away. But because I wasn't made redundant in any way, I was able to. I finished work on a Friday as an employee of Santander, as it was then, and on the Monday I was doing contract work for Santander. So I've gone straight back in doing what I'd been doing before, but now being paid as a self-employed person. So that initial was not full time. It was a few days here, a few days there, which was fine. I'd worked out the minimum I needed.
Ad hoc.
Yeah, yeah. It was about working through an academy. An academy might have been 3 days one day, 4 days the next. But I got pretty steady work through them for about a few months. And then I got to a point that I got into this flow of how to do it. And then I decided that although they were offering me more work, I needed to go and get more experience. So I then moved on to go and work for, I think it was a nationwide building society, through a different agency, and I built it up from there.
And what were your hopes and dreams for your self-employed life outside of corporate? What were you hoping it would be like? And what was the reality? What is the reality?
So my initial conversations with people about working on contracts. So because my background's banking and most of the banks outsourced a lot of their training, I know that I'm in demand, or people like me are in demand, because having regulated knowledge is a niche. I knew I could pick up work like that, but at the same time, I was thinking, oh, I'm self-employed. I started researching, bought books, trying to work out how to be properly self-employed, as in getting my own clients. But then soon realized, trying to do things, but I was working full time on contracts meant I wasn't able to have this opportunity to build up my own client base or even do anything. And I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know people that could help with those kind of things. And I knew that because I didn't have anything like a redundancy package behind me, I needed the money from these contracts and I couldn't really give it up. So that sort of went by the wayside, and I just carried on being a contractor for a number of years. And through that, I built up experience. I built up the amount of money I can charge. And I went from training into doing learning design. I worked on some huge transformation projects for some of the big banks like Lloyds and HSBC. And I've worked on things like mortgage market review, GDPR, customers in vulnerable circumstances, customers in financial difficulties. So really big projects where I might be working for 12, 18 months on something, gaining lots of experience in the whole learning and development process. So getting into design, I actually thought that I would hate it because I wasn't going to be people focused, and found that I discovered my creative side. So there you go. Yeah, spent all my time at school thinking, oh, I'm not creative, I can't really draw. And then realizing that actually creating something, you're thinking of an activity to put in a training course, is still being creative. And then as that's evolved, I got to, very conveniently, towards 2018 maybe, I started picking up some like e-learning design through one of the banks, but it was a little bit more Adobe Pro, very simple. Coming into end of 2019, I saw that obviously there was a lot more appeal for e-learning design, and maybe I should go and study it a bit more. I bought books, tried to have a play with it myself, and then eventually decided to take myself on a course. The course happened in January 2020, and then we all know what happened next.
No, what happened? What happened?
Yeah. But being able to do e-learning design suddenly became a really big desire. So I timed it perfectly. So
Wow.
again, just pushing myself forwards, always trying to learn new things. I'd done a certificate in training design and then did the storyline stuff. Yeah, I had all that behind me, felt comfortable doing that. And so then I spent the next couple of years doing lots of e-learning design. So using lots of different types of tech. And so my experience now has spanned, coaching, training, and design and analysis. So able to apply myself to whatever's in front of me, I guess.
I have weird ideas, thoughts pop into my head during these conversations, and I just have a sense that 17-year-old Nina would like to hear from you. What would you, with everything that you've been through, now you can look back. What would you say to her?
I'm not even sure it's about talking to myself because I feel like I've done everything I could do. I would maybe say believe in yourself and it will happen. Getting pregnant was a bit of a thing in that, but I don't know whether I would have maybe moved away without having a child. I don't know. Maybe at some point later, but definitely not in my teens, I don't think. I had no experience of being away from home. But then I feel like now that's more my role now as a mother and a grandmother. I instill in my daughter that she could do anything. I've helped her, but also that she should do something she enjoys. And she had a really tough time in sixth form at school. She didn't really get on with one of the teachers. And I just sat down with her and said, all I want you to be is happy. So if that means you don't carry on and you don't go to university, then that's absolutely fine. And she's found her own path a bit like I've done. She is very much my mini me, and she is finding her own path and everything. But I'm there now, a better role model, I think, to support her in that journey. But then my little granddaughter, Aubrey, I tell her all the time, you can do anything you want to do. You just need to try.
Wow. What that I guess I'm a little bit speechless, because just from having shared briefly your story and your journey over the last hour and a half or so, I know that those are not idle words. It's born out of a life lived of thinking about what it is that you wanted and going after it. What a great, what an inspiring role model you are for both your daughter and your granddaughter.
I'd like to think that. My granddaughter, she's 5, only just gone 5 a couple of months ago, and she is a lot like me, as in she has a desire to learn. So she's always wanting, if I say a word, she'll ask me, what does that mean, Grandma? She wants to read all the time. She wants to understand things. So I'm really excited to see her journey. And I think she'll do fabulously, because she'll then have us behind her, supporting her.
I think that it's that sense of curiosity, which I think is the way that society is built, and the education system and whatever, is that curiosity is the thing which I think should be nurtured and encouraged and allowed to flourish. Because when you have curiosity is they say curiosity killed the cat, but curiosity creates the life, I think.
Yeah.
In just saying what if, and what does that mean, and what might happen if that. Just I love the word, and I love being curious, and I think that's probably one of the reasons that I do this podcast, because I am just such a curious bugger that I just want to find out about what makes people tick. And just saying that actually makes me think, when you think about what makes you tick, what you've learned about yourself over the life that you've lived, from when you made the change from corporate to self-employed life, what's been the thing that surprised you most about yourself? I'm just wondering if there's any experiences that you've had since you've gone self-employed that has either reinforced something for you or surprised you in terms of your capability.
I think it comes back to my keenness to keep going and try new things, because a lot of people who go into contracting just stick to the one job, as in, I'm a trainer, I stand up in a room. I've evolved into design and analysis and all those things. And even now, so a couple of years back, I decided I wanted to be more freelance than on contracts. So trying to get into different spheres, if you will, driven by a bit by IR 35. But since then, so last year, I decided that wasn't quite enough. And what I really should be doing is going and getting my own direct clients. And I've been on a journey for the last year trying to work out what that looks like, how I package it up, who I want to work with. And I've come full circle back to remembering the coaching side of it, because when all the design and everything, I haven't really used that. And again, still remembering that I've always got a passion to learn something new. So I'm currently studying for the ILM level 7 coaching and mentoring, so that I can do leadership coaching. I mean, I can do it now. Sorry, I've got loads of experience, but I just want that validation to say, good, you're good at this, you can do this, and moving on. So I think, it is still always be learning, always be curious, always keep moving forward. And I'm surrounded by friends. I'm 56 now. I'm surrounded. My husband's retired from the police. I've got friends who are looking towards retirement, others that aren't working, and I'm just not ready to give up yet. I still want to have an impact and do good things for people and be that role model.
That's wonderful. Coming to the end of our time together, and I just really appreciate, Nina, your openness to and willingness to explore your past life, probably parts there which you'd not thought about for a while. And it's just lovely to have spent this time with you, reflecting on your life's journey, what's got you to where you are, and you are where you are, and your journey forward is going to be as non-straight line as the journey behind you. Do you have any sense of where it's going to take you? Do you have any kind of vision for, say, the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, my goal is to build up a client base of coaching clients, so like leadership. So I want business leaders of like small to medium sized companies that have got employees. So help them where they're addressing teams and that helping them with difficult conversations. It's coming back to what we said before about those. Communication is one of my biggest passions, and handling those difficult conversations, but also some of the other leadership type skills like making decisions. I think sometimes I struggle with those. So I want to do more coaching with those. But then on the back of that, I'd also like to, my aim is then to build like a group coaching session for those that don't really want to pay for individual coaching. And then also to develop some training courses that supplement all this, because again, that's bringing all the knowledge together that will then maybe eventually bring me some passive income so that I can semi-retire, do a bit of coaching now and again, but still have a bit of extra income coming in. But still helping people, even though I'm not physically working with.
Yeah, well, from what I've heard about the Nina that has lived her life to where she is now, I'm certain that most, if not all of that, will come to pass. So thanks so much for being here with me. I do have one question that I ask every guest at the end of our time together, and that is that if I could have a non-straight line journey conversation with anyone in the world on your behalf, who would it be?
Okay, I've got a couple of people in mind that might be good for you, but I've heard them, so they're not really the stories I want to hear. Daniel Priestley.
Daniel Priestley, excellent choice. Yeah, he's not been mentioned. I know a little of his story
Because I know a lot about what he does business wise. I don't know how he got to where he got.
Yeah. Do you know him? Do you have any contact with him?
No.
Thank you so much. Like every time I ask this question, the bar is raised just a little bit higher. It's like, and it's great because I'm building my future guest list. So wonderful. Well, thanks again.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Not a Straight Line. If this conversation helped to reorient your internal compass or inspired you in any way, please let us know by heading to podcast.notastraightline.life/rate and leave a rating and review. Thanks as always to Matthew Bliss of MB Podcast Services for his exquisite engineering of this episode. If you'd like him to help you with your podcast, contact details are in the show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or there's someone whose non-straight line journey you'd just love to hear, then please visit podcast.notastraightline.life/guest. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next week for another amazing, deep, inspiring non-straight line journey. Love you.